All right, this video comes at the best time possible because this weekend I am solo in this house. My roommate decided to take a trip, so here I am. but um, Today's topic is on the one habit that I picked up back in it was 2021. I picked up this habit. I think I heard it the first time from Tim Ferriss. If you're not familiar with Tim Ferriss, he's like one of the original podcasters alongside like Joe Rogan, who made it big. Obviously, he wrote the 4 Hour Work Week, which was a huge success. And then he has some 4 hour type books after that, Successful Investor, and much more. Anyway, he talked about doing this once in his podcast before, and I was like, I want to take this up. It's not necessarily a habit that you do every day or once a week or even once a month, but it's something that you do 1 to 2 times a year. Now, depending on where you live, this can look different. And depending on how much money you make, your experience may look differently. And I'll explain it in a minute. Now, what we do is that once or twice a year, you go on what is called a solitude trip. Now, the solitude trip is not to exuberate your loneliness, it is to be with your aloneness. This is something that Osho talked about in his book, Love, Freedom, and Aloneness, where there's a difference. Loneliness is something that you can say hurts, right? It doesn't feel good to feel lonely. But on the other hand, aloneness is something that you choose to do. It's voluntary because maybe you want to sit and pray to God, or maybe you want to sit and journal, meditate. People do this in Vipassana retreats, multiple day long meditation retreats, things like that. That is aloneness. So it's a voluntary decision. Back in 2021, I did my first trip. I only stood out there for about 2 days. It was really one night. No, sorry, 2 nights and like one full day. So I came late the evening. I ate dinner there and slept. And then I spent the next day fully alone. No technology. I cut off the Wi Fi from my Airbnb. Where I was like a little cabin in this place called Bolinas, California. It's very small. And it's about 40 minutes north of San Francisco. And I spent that day there. And then the next morning, I woke up with sunset. That until I had to check out at 11, and I went back home. And that was me testing the waters. I wrote a lot. I actually made a video during that time. I think it's still on the channel. It should say Bolinas Solitude something. And I decided like I need to do this more often. So I did it again. In the beginning of 2022, this time I went to the Santa Cruz Mountains, stayed in a cabin. This time was for 2 days, 2 full days. And I had a little hut. It was literally like a 1 bedroom studio, just a bathroom. There was no kitchen. There was a kitchenette that had coffee, like some snacks. So prior to the trip, I actually went out and bought food so that it was like microwavable food. And I did a 15-mile hike the next day. I always do it in nature because I think nature brings out more for us. It's really good to do it away from a city environment. And I make sure to always do it somewhere. So Bolinas was near a beach. So I went to the beach. Yeah, there were people around, but I found myself a secluded spot. And I sat there for like 3 hours at one point. And then finally, recently, I made a video on this was the end of 2022. I'm saying recently, like that happened last month. No, it was last year. This time for 4 days, I left to Mount Shasta, which is way north of California. It's absolutely beautiful up there. I stayed at the base of the mountain, pretty much the last place you go to or stay before you get to the mountain and do all that. That was where I literally met God. So that's when my faith began. I journaled a bunch. I released a lot. I always say that sometimes when you find a quiet space, and men, especially for you, anger comes out. It's like we bottle it in. Even though I was doing jujitsu, I work out, I run, I do things to like move the body to get that out, because every day I get a little pissed off at something, whether that's, a person in the store not being nice, or a work thing, or a family member's being a dick. Like, there's always something that will get you a little ticked off. And for societal purposes, you kind of just, you'll hold a boundary, but like, you can't yell at people, you can't, beat someone up. That we still have those tendencies within us that, like, stop playing. We have these dark thoughts. You have these dark thoughts. We all do. So for me, like, being in that lonely space, I'm able to release that in a comfortable and safe manner where I'm not hurting anyone, right? I grab a pillow and I do my thing into great release. Sometimes you'll release, I've released like tears, like just stuff that comes up when you're alone and you're just in your mind and you're writing. You'd be surprised what comes out. You'd be surprised what we unconsciously put to the side, because it's like, okay, I can't deal with this right now because I have to deal with these things. The world, there's so much happening in the world that doesn't give us time to go through our own emotions. Everyone has a different timeline on how we deal with our emotions. And I think the solitude trip really helps. I always say it's where the truth comes out. The truth comes out. Everything you need to know, all your answers for questions that you have in mind are going to come out. That's what happened to me. But that was a relationship that I was in. That was when I kind of knew that it was pretty much over. I didn't make the decision right away. I still wanted to try, but I knew that it was done. And I knew that the job that I was in at the time, that something was going to happen. There was a layoff coming. I just felt it. I knew. And that trip, I was like, I need to be prepared for this. And I remember the last 2 months, I really held on to a lot of my money, because I felt it. And lo and behold, it happened. The truth comes out and your intuition gets stronger. Your relationship with God, the universe, whatever you believe in, gets much stronger. And it's a beautiful thing. I do this 1 or 2 times a year. 2023, I haven't been able to do it just because of the nature of this year. But this weekend, my roommate's gone. It's just me and the dog. And I was like, I'll treat this weekend as one. I'm going to go on a long hike. Since to me, hiking is good because usually I don't have service. It's like 3 hours. If I get one that's like 8 miles, and I stop and I take my time, and like when I get to the end, if there's something to see, I'll sit and just contemplate with a notebook or my phone and just write whatever thoughts come up to me. Sometimes ideas for videos come up, business ideas come up, sometimes things to reach out to specific people I haven't spoken to in a while come up, and I create a to-do list of things that I want to do when I get back. And it's always a beautiful thing. I highly recommend doing this. Add that habit to you. How do you do it? Well, if you're low on the money, because I've spent lots of dollars staying in cabins, especially in California. It's expensive. I'm spending anywhere from $100 to $200 a night just to stay at a cabin, which is why the first 2 times I did it, it was only for like a day or two. Um, so you can grab a cabin somewhere in nature. But if you live in a place like California or any of these spots that have campgrounds, you can grab a campground for like $20 a night, grab your tent and do it. I haven't done that yet. I want to do that coming soon, especially now. Like, I'm really trying to save money in this economy. So I was like, maybe a camping trip would be better. I would bring my dog because I would, just for safety reasons. I'm solo, and my own like weapon, which will be my steel mace. But you can do that. And then if you do have a little bit of money, I always recommend like drive out. If you live in a city like New York, for instance, drive out 2 to 3 hours upstate, find a cabin near a lake, and stay there. Do a weekend. I always say start slow. Start with a day or two, and then work your way up as you do the next few. Because it's hard. It's not easy to be in solitude. You're gonna be tempted to get on your phone. You're gonna be tempted to do all these things, but unplug the Wi-Fi. Sit there with your thoughts. Like, literally, there will be times where I just lay on the floor and just look up at the ceiling, and I get lost in my thoughts for like 3 hours. So it's similar to my video, Close the Tabs. If you haven't watched that, I'll put that somewhere here. Um, and I hope this habit can change your life indeed. Like, utilize it. It's awesome. If you could do it more than one time a year, get after it. Until tomorrow.